just hope to have this dialogue. It's, again, today's really making me very uncomfortable that, I mean, AI too, and I'm not giving the technical talk. It never happened to me before. Hopefully it's the last time. Next time I'll come with 150 slides, which I actually have. But yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Should I move the chairs? And
I'm so tempted.
So we have so many young researchers among ourselves within AI too. So what do you think you would like them to get out of the book?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, this book is a love letter. And it is very hard to think about AI in a warm and positive way these days. But it generally is a love letter. It's a love letter for science. It's written in a double helix structure. Actually, anybody has read that book? CVPR, we blame it up. Okay, so it's written in a double helix way of a scientist, a young scientist, happened to be a girl, but it doesn't matter. The coming of age of her in the science of AI, as well as AI as a science coming of age, and so the foremost the love letter is for the science of AI. I really want to share with the world that this is a fascinating science. It's a curiosity. It is just fun. It's whimsical. When I was hit by this AI bug, it is also a love letter to people. Seattle is way better. If you live in Silicon Valley, there's this culture, especially if you're a tech person, you're just this genius born out of a rock or something. And it's just me. It's all about me. But that's really, at least it's not true for me. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have my parents giving up everything for me. I really hope you read it and to identify someone in your life like my high school math teacher in Parsippany, New Jersey. And then, my graduate school advisors, my colleagues, even ImageNet, it is multiple authors, and of course my students. And I wouldn't be here. And that is a love letter for but the most important thing for the young people is this book. I'm so proud of this. I have to say, this is a neural network. In case you haven't noticed, we use the ResNet. We tweak ResNet, even though it looks like a star, sky of stars, but it's actually a modified ResNet. I should ask Kai-Ming for permission. But there's a North Star in this on this cover, and this for the young people. I think it's about North Star. It's finding your North Star. I mean, of course you're here, so I assume hopefully it's AI, but it doesn't even have to be AI. Just find that passion, find your love, find what gives you happiness as well as dignity. And when I say dignity is, especially like as old as I am, you're going to go through life and look back and find that pride and meaning. And that's what I hope the young people can read about.
That's fascinating. Speaking of passion, impact, so I think I still remember the word of AI before ImageNet. And I remember the early conversations on ImageNet when you were thinking about doing it and all the struggle and all the pushback, all those conversations.
You must have heard people saying bad things about you.
So if I want to see Fei-Fei in 2023, 2024, and play the same card, what is that card? Like, what do you bet on?
What I'm betting on? I'm betting on closing the loop between perception and actions.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is, since Ranjay has graduated, my lab has
flourished.
To get back.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, look, 540 million years ago, evolution stumbled upon vision. But let me tell you, animals did not have vision to sit there and label whatever passes by, trilobites, dinner. It's not true. Vision is here because we gotta move. We gotta move around so that we don't get eaten. We move around to eat others. We build a home. We find our mates. We start to alter the world. And this is what perception is for. So that is what I'm betting on.
In what way does it connect to language? Seems like you want to pull your slides.
Yeah, the Vox Poser. Have you read that? Sure. I mean, language is a great way of. I'm sure you're all reading the 2 days ago, this paper on LLM training self-driving cars. So it's a very cute paper. I honestly didn't read the details. I think language plays a role, but I also think the world is so much deeper and bigger than language. Evolution spent 20,000-30,000 years to give us language because all these continuous brain waves in our mushy brain has to find an efficient encoder so that we can communicate. But is that everything there is to, intelligence, to agency, to thoughts, to decision making? Absolutely not. So I'm glad the language is doing very well and leading. In fact, I'm more than glad. I'm very proud as an AI person to see what NLP and LLMs have given us. But I think that's just one piece of this multimodal world.
Very exciting. I want to go back to one of the pillars that you have been pushing for it for more than a decade at this point, and that's democratizing AI. So when you think about this space, especially from a perspective of us in this room, a nonprofit, who also deeply cares about democratizing AI, what do you think are the challenges? What are the best directions? How do you think about that space?
Yeah, I gotta say that this is part of the surrealness of today's AI. So in June, I met with President Biden in a room of 7-ish people. I think Aura was there. I remembered. And on behalf of both Stanford and public sector AI, I shared with President Biden that we need a moonshot mentality to invest in public sector AI. I know I'm talking to, speaking to the choir, but I think as evangelists of public sector of AI, it is important we actually recognize this moment, is that there are two reasons we need public sector AI. First of all, if you look at how civilization is made, this kind of blue sky, curiosity-driven, discovery-driven, knowledge-driven work is one of the most important things of human civilization. Who thinks electricity has a Scottish flavor? Or, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. James Maxwell is Scottish, but nobody thinks electricity and those Maxwell equation has a Scottish flavor. It's because when we discover such fundamental pieces of technology or innovation or knowledge, it benefits the whole humanity. And AI is so horizontal. It's so powerful to help humanity to do scientific discovery, whether it's drugs, or fusion or biodiversity understanding or, anything. We need public sector leading the way. Private sector has never really be leading that kind of curiosity-driven, blue sky, benevolent, knowledge kind of efforts. That's one reason we need to democratize and need to invest in public sector. Another reason we need to invest in, and I know Ali, you share this, is really trustworthiness and responsible use, right? We need trusted source to evaluate, assess, and explain what this technology is. And you guys are too young to remember, but 1996, to be sure, I didn't remember either. I learned it recently.
I wanted to say that.
1996, President Clinton announced in his office that human genome was mapped. It was a very symbolic moment because there was a race between public sector and private sector. And the announcement was that both public sector and private sector arrive at the same point. Can you imagine today, as if you are in any biogenetic, kind of research or development, that if that mapped human genome only belonged to one company, can you just imagine what would be? And we wouldn't know so many things. So I think it's so important that public sector plays a leading role in democratization, in transparency, in explanation and assessment. And I know that you guys are trying to do a lot of that work. And shameless plug, Stanford HAI is also, we have Percy Leung is leading that whole hem of effort to assess LLMs and all that. Right.
So what do you think is the biggest missing piece for a public play?
Money. Sorry, but that. Well, okay. So a little deeper than that is, honestly, at this point, political will. I think a lot of our policymakers are not recognizing this. Right. You and I go to DC a lot, and I mean, I'm a scientist. I don't just wake up thinking, let me go to DC. It really, but the reason I still go, the reason that Stanford HAI 5 years ago decided we have to do policy work is because I think this communication is so important. Can I tell the story of NAIR? Because I know you guys are so pivotal in this NAIR. NAIR started when 2019 Stanford HAI was launched, and my co-director is John Mundy, who was Stanford's longest serving provost for like almost 2 decades. And we were having a couple of conversations with policymakers or people who are adjacent to policymakers, meaning they're rich people. But anyway, and they were asking us what single thing you want to say to the government that would actually matter to the world of AI. So John and I went back in the summer of 19 and said, let's think about what is one thing we really want to say to the government. That translated into an open letter we published in March 2020, like literally the month of COVID, as a call for National AI Research Cloud. We took this open letter, we sent it to major universities around the country. Of course, it's John H. Mundy. If I email the president, nobody would reply my email, but John knows all the presidents and provosts. And we got almost 30 university presidents and provosts co-sign those. I'm sure UW was one of them, co-signed that letter. In the meantime, we start to work on the bill. And Senator Campbell was one of the co-sponsors of what we call the NAIR Task Force Bill, which asked for the government to do a planning on National AI Cloud. And January 1st, 2021, I got my New Year's gift. My policy office texted me and said, despite Trump shutting down the bigger bill that included the NAIR bill, Mitch McConnell revived that bill, and NAIR passed. It was one of the last bill passed under President Trump, and President Biden came and established the task force, and I was on it. Oren was on it. Both of us were representing public sector, and there were other representatives. We worked for 20 months, and then during this time, lots of DC trips. And this February, we submitted the planning, our recommendation to Congress. And then in March, I was in DC. I don't know if Oren was in DC, start to, talk to all the congressional Senate AI caucuses, both sides of the House, talking to NIST, talking to White House. And then finally this July, we got bipartisan co-sponsors and wrote a bill called Create AI Act. And now Create AI Act is live in both Congress and Senate, and we're hoping to pass this bill. And this is 4 years in the working of trying to help the public sector.
And just last week, NEAR started.
Yeah,
we were in DC for that.
Under the EO, Biden's executive order included a tiny pilot piece. Did you go to the Biden EO?
No, I was a week after that. I was there for the NEAR pilot.
Yeah.
And our efforts in Olmo, Dolmo are going to be key pivotal pieces for the NEAR.
Right.
And I'm excited about that. Very cool. Let me shift the gear a little bit. We'll have a long list of questions. I don't think we actually have time to go through all of it, but one of the ones that I'm actually sort of curious to know how you think about it is fast forward for 5 years. Where do you think AI will be? And what are the hard problems that we see today that you think is solved, and what are the new unsolved problems in 5 years?
Oh boy, that's a really hard question. So many dimensions. I think some bubbles will burst.
You want to elaborate?
I think we're going to see a deepening of AI into the vertical industry. It is going to move more and more towards electricity in a sense, whether it's sexy or not. It's probably still going to be sexy enough. It is going to deepen. It is such a deep horizontal. You don't need to say that. So that we're going to see AI in so many industries. That I really, really believe in. I think, frankly, it's not just AI. Have you heard this quote by E.O. Wilson? The problem of humanity is we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technologies. So I think our institutions, be it our forms of government, be it the kind of conflicts we have today around the world, and the godlike technologies that you're all contributing in making, it's gonna make it. We're gonna go through turmoil in the world. I'm optimistic about the core of humanity, but I'm not delusional about the challenges we're gonna go through. And this is also why I'm so committed to talking to young people of all walks of life, because I think if young people give up on this, give up trying, give up making things better, we really would be doomed. That's the real doomers, So in terms of technology, we're vision, many of us here are vision people. I think we're gonna see an LLM moment for computer vision.
What do you think that LLM would do or would show?
Perception is not solved in the general way, right? Like, we know perception is not solved. And I think we will be starting to see, we're already seeing budding signs, 3D vision and all that. So I'm very excited by that. I don't know, 5 years sounds too aggressive, but I think robotics revolution is gonna come. Do you guys still do robotics?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
So small efforts on the side of Thor,
Right.
where we train on simulation and test on real world.
Right.
I don't know if Kiona's over there. She's living there. So speaking of, you mentioned doomsday.
I did. Some people did.
No, you said this is a real doomsday.
Okay.
Actually, I think all of us are curious to learn more about this aspect of AI. I know many of the legit scientists in this space also shared those concerns. It used to be a time where it was only about people who are new to AI were talking about doomsday and all of those, and now some of the old schoolers also concerned about this. Is this hype? Is this real? Where do you sit on that? And what is the real risk, the way you see it?
Did you anybody saw my live debate with Jeff Hinton about 2 weeks ago? Okay, so it's actually fun. I actually went to Toronto for that. I mean, I went to Toronto for a number of things, but if you think the onstage live debate between me and Jeff was fun, you should have been in the room the night before. And I went to his house for dinner, and it was really great taco, but it was really heated. So I think that is a kind of a symbolizing event of two different opinions, right? So there's Jeff, for whatever reason, believes sentient being, believes AI is sentient and AI is this big brain that's just going to keep learning and then it's just going to go rogue, or some versions of that. Jeff is actually, such a respected, I really love and respect him. He's a scientist. I actually respect people who are intellectually exploring that topic, because I think that's what we do. Like, you should be allowed the freedom and the respect to explore any topic you want in this way. What concerns me is when the European Union's Twitter handle a month ago put out a tweet about human extinction and AI. I don't know anybody saw that. That to me was irresponsibility. That to me is what you call hype. Worse than hype, because you're misleading the public and you're not informing the public in the right way. I think AI, and look, my co-director at HAI is a philosopher, John Edgeminty, despite he was a former provost. We talk a lot about what does it mean to be sentient. Honestly, half of his talk, even though he and I talk all the time, I still don't understand everything he says. It really shows that this is an academic topic. We don't even know how to define consciousness of humans. A sister institute of Allen Brain Institute. One of the former leaders was my PhD co-advisor, Christoph Koch. His whole career was talking about consciousness or studying consciousness. At least I know it's very, very hard. We haven't really fully understand this. Now, in the society, for this moment, as policymakers, as leaders, like, you go talk to the DC people, and I think we need to be more responsible than that. I think the real risks are social catastrophic risks that can truly impact public life in profound ways, not sentient beings. So what are the catastrophic risks? 2024, disinformation and democracy, to me, is one of the biggest risks that we have to face. Weaponization and geopolitical conflict is another risk. Bias and the lack of responsible use, bias, privacy infringement, all these issues are big risks. And of course, jobs, right? I believe AI will massively increase productivity. I believe that. I wouldn't go around talk like Sam, who says infinite, whatever. But let's not forget, productivity does not translate to workforce prosperity. It just doesn't. Workforce prosperity, distribution, fairness is a much deeper and more nuanced issue. Look at globalization. Globalization has increased the global GDP pie for sure. But if you look at the distribution within that pie, it is extremely problematic. So AI will increase productivity, but we don't know yet how we're gonna translate that into shared prosperity. And these are major social issues. And I would, again, the young people here, right, and your friends, you're the only hope. I hope that you recognize how important your work is, how important your work will impact the future, and you have a choice to make about what you're going to work on.
So speaking of impact, and the kind of problems and challenges you mentioned. So as a nonprofit for us, how do you think about our role? Where do you think we should double down, and where do you think are the areas that we should avoid?
Yeah, well, this is Ali. Honestly, I would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, we are now both leading two of this country's relatively well-known AI nonprofit. I'm leading it within Stanford. I'm also envious you're doing this in an independent nonprofit.org way. I see positive, good things of that. But nevertheless, we're both nonprofit, right? Couple of things. First of all, I think we have a leadership role to play, connection to the public, connection to educating the public, connection to policy world. I absolutely think there is great leadership role to play. I also think, and I would love to, so this is where Stanford HAI has a very unique setup, is double down, triple down on the kind of thought leadership which translate into research that no matter how much money you have in a company, you cannot do. For example, we've got neuroscientists, computational neuroscientists, trying to rethink about chips in dendritic architecture, which is very different from axon. So this is the kind of thing that it's hard to do because you have to have computer scientists working with neuroscientists and so on. We've got a computer scientist working in our with our school of education to look at how to superpower teachers and learning. We've got computer scientists working with a political scientist who look at refugee a lot of work in refugee help is help to find new homes for refugee in the new country, and that is actually has a lot of algorithmic challenge in this. How do you maximize the success of this placement? And we see machine learning algorithm helping alongside policy thinking. So I just think that scientific discovery, new knowledge discovery is what public sector is so good at. And last but not the least, public sector is the transparency piece, right? We are not for profit motivated. We don't answer to VCs and boards. We're not selling products. And we can actually look, if someone is truly worried about sentient being, I think it's so important that AI2 and HAI actually take a look at under the hood, what is there coming out of this, right? So we play that role, and we should continue to play that role.
This is exciting. You mentioned sentient being, and it's hard to define it.
Yeah.
I want to step back and simplify the problem. Have you come across the definition of intelligence that made you happy? Much simpler than sentient.
I remembered, oh God, you can quote me on this, but the chapter 1 of Stuart Russell's book is really good. So I'm sure you all have an intro to modern approach, intro to artificial intelligence.
Intro to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, actually, okay, I haven't read their latest edition. I don't know, but I remembered, I don't know, 10 years ago, I thought that was very good.
How do you define it?
How do I define it? Definition of intelligence.
Let me tell you why I'm asking this, because I struggle going from intelligence to the 3-letter that's forbidden in my lab, the A, G, and I together. I like to get to that point to see how you think about those 3 letters.
Oh God, those 3 letters. Okay, so this book write about the founding fathers of AI, right? I read McCarthy and the Dartmouth paper. You can also read Alan Turing's paper. from the get-go, the audacious goal of our field is to figure out thinking machines and machine intelligence. Nobody in those papers ever said, let's make narrow AI that do one task. So I don't know why we need a middle letter. If the dream of AI starting from our founding fathers were that kind of general human-like, human-inspired, possibly superhuman level of intelligence and thinking and decision-making. So from that point of view, I mean, the truth is, this is a winning term from the industry side, from the marketing side. I don't know how to combat that. So you forbid it?
No, I'm just scientific. I'm just curious to see how you think about it. I think forbidden the students graduate 6 months later if they
I don't. I think I work on AI. I don't work on AGI.
Excellent. So going back to the book, what was the moment that you decided you're going to write this?
Oh my God, I never did. I'll tell you the true story. Okay, so I don't know, late 2019 or something, book agents start calling me and say, you gotta write a book, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, can I write a textbook? And then I realized I have to write hundreds of pages in latex. And I was like, maybe there's just too much work for a textbook. So they said, okay, why don't you write a popular science book? And I was like, okay, that's a possibility because I want more people democratizing AI. So I called my friends. If you read my acknowledgement, I had a co-writer. His name is Alex. I called Alex. I said, I want to write a popular science book about AI, at least to introduce computer vision. I also feel like computer vision is not as well explained in the AI world. So we wrote for a year. COVID came, we just keep talking on the phone. And then I give the first draft to my friend. You keep hearing this name, John H. Bundy. He literally called me and Alex and said, come over to my backyard. I need to talk to you. After a year, like finished book. And then he literally said, this is not good, go rewrite. He said, look, Fei-Fei, I know you're an AI scientist, but he said, in the world of AI, the women, the young women out there, the people of immigrants out there, the people of all walks of life, they don't have a voice to identify with. You have a story that is such an American story. It's such a story that you can use to deliver the science message. So I was so reluctant. Actually, Alex heard that, and Alex said, I told you, because I resisted that whole time. But John is a dear friend, and he's also such a wise philosopher, such a wise man. I did reluctantly recognize the wisdom in that. So I rewrote the whole book. And there are people you will identify in the book. Many people, they're all alive. So other than Alan Turing and John McCarthy, I decided, like I said at the beginning, since I want to use that human story to carry the science story to write this double helix structure, so today, President Obama put this book on his list to read.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Oh, by the way, there's one thing I feel so excited to tell this group, because the general public wouldn't feel this excited. I came to this country when I was 15. I landed in a small town called Parsippany, New Jersey, in early 1990s. I did not know that 40 miles away from me, in the same time, there was Bell Lab, and Young LeCun was making his convolutional neural network. And it's just so cool that, I don't know, I find it so cool that, it's happening that way.
This is awesome. Congratulations again on the book, and thank you so much for spending time with us and
Well, thanks
also
for
opening your
inviting
tour
me.
with us. This is an
I
exciting
know.
time.
Ali is good. He just texted me 2 weeks ago and said, "Come over and give a talk."
Um, planning wise, do we have time for questions or strong?
Yeah, we have time.
We have time. So if there are questions that you would like to ask, now it's time. Don't be shy.
So, should I go? Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You mentioned in the beginning North Star. I was wondering, as someone looking to enter a PhD program, what are good ways to think about maybe finding those North Stars when maybe in a setting where you may not have as many resources to build like the hugest model, or yeah.
But the good news about North Star is there are many North Stars. And the biggest model might not be a North Star that in public sector or academia we can chase. But I also, frankly, I like to work in things where it's not the fashion. Like, I don't know, Ranjay, we talked about this. I think I force my student to look beyond fashion, to look into fundamental problems. I think those are the directions of the sky where it's more likely to find the North Star rather than, I do feel, I don't know, Ali, when we were graduate students, we didn't wake up with hundreds of archive papers. I feel terrible for this generation, that the amount of information overload, right? Like, we
Yeah.
had more thinking time. I feel.
Exactly. We had actually some time to sit back, and our conferences are actually useful.
Like we meet people. Yeah, we meet people.
I miss that.
I
Like the
miss that.
CBPR and NURBS of these days are,
Yeah,
to me, completely useless.
yeah.
So Danielle, you raise your hand. Actually, they're over there. If you want to ask your question, please unmute and ask.
Yeah, so you mentioned about how AI must be mostly driven by the public sector thing. What are your thoughts about like this hybrid thing called public-private sector partnership for AI thing? How's that different than, like, for example, compared to only public sector leading AI? What are your thoughts about that? About like a public-private partnership thing?
Thank you, Daniel, right, for the question. First of all, I did not say AI should only be led by public sector. I want to make sure I don't get just quoted, because I think private sector is very, very important. The ecosystem, America as a country, liberal democracy, capitalism, has done very, very well in many decades because we have such a healthy ecosystem of private sector, public sector. And I absolutely believe in public sector, private sector partnership. I think the partnership can come in many, many ways. Well, obviously in AI, data partnership, talent exchange, right? I mean, most of our students become leaders in private sector. Compute partnership there, Ali and I are working on, is actually hopefully going to be a government program with private sector partnership. So I just want to be very clear. The reason that people like Ali and I are running around talking about public sector now is because we have a severe imbalance of resource. So severe that public sector is almost forgotten. If you look at, not a single university in America can train a chat GPT. Apparently Europe might. I just heard that. So I think because of this moment, because of the danger of impoverishing public sector so much, that people like me and Ali are now starting to run around and try to scream a little louder about public sector. But I absolutely agree with you. Public sector, private sector partnership is critical.
Thank you. More questions?
You mentioned that you're very grateful to your parents, and also it says in the intro of the book. How did they influence your research, or was there any influence on your research?
So this is a question about my parents. I actually really hope you can read my book. I think I'm a parent myself. I think if you read my book, you get to see that they really don't know what I'm doing. I my parents are immigrants without speaking English. So Stanford had a book launch for me this past week. I was very grateful, and I got my parents over, and first time I had a public platform to just say thank you to many people, including my parents. After that whole event, my parents asked me, "What did you see? I see people clapping at you." Even though most of that speech actually was a love letter to my parents. So but in hindsight, what they gave me, and I hope we give to a lot of our children, is freedom. It's an intellectual freedom and fearlessness that as an immigrant girl, 18-year-old, you'll see in the book from a very, very near poverty situation, that I've got parents who would support me to major in physics as like the only two girls in my year in Princeton. They would support me to decline Goldman Sachs offers and to go to Caltech to pursue this thing called AI. they would support me to, in the book I talk about, in the middle of my grad school, I really almost quit. And I got an offer from McKinsey. And even though my mom was having a heart surgery during that time I wrote about this, she just said, "What are you doing? Why are you going to McKinsey if you are a scientist in your heart?" So the only thing they gave me was freedom and fear, courage. They still don't know how to spell AI.
So you mentioned the next thing that you would like to see, or you think the AI would go, is perception and action, or interactable perception. So in 1, 5, and 10 years, what would be the things that you would like to see that would impress you in AI?
My God. In 1 year, if my behavior team can release a good usable behavior library, I'll be very impressed. That's what I'm focusing on right now. For those of you who don't know, behavior is a simulation environment for robotic learning. So 5 years, man. Solving behavior. It's 1,000 everyday household activities. 10 years, I would love to see robotic industry. I would love to see. Robot is hard, right? There's hardware, so I'm not going to be delusional about that. But maybe in 10 years, we might hit that 2012 AlexNet moment for robotic learning.
What would be that moment?
What would be that moment? A good benchmark that we have exciting result, and we're seeing a family of algorithm that is general, that has that kind of fundamental characteristics to be generalizable. I don't know, what is that moment? What is that Alex moment to you? AlexNet moment?
I think my view of this is if we can have large scale interaction piece in the wild, which entails having some form of physical devices out there. I don't know what the task would be, but that's sort of like
behavior tasks.
Someone else had it. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your AI for all activities? Like, are you targeting students, like K through 12 students, or like public?
Yeah, so AI for All, I don't know if Sophie is here, she was helping in our early days. So AI for All is a nonprofit. It started in 2015 with my former student Oza Rusakowski and a Stanford former faculty called Rick Summer. We really saw the need of inviting students of all diverse backgrounds into the world of AI. I mean, that was like pre-AlphaGo. pre all of this, but we know, I mean, you all know AI is going to be important, and we see that we need to invite more students. So it's always a nonprofit program that creates these summer camp opportunity, as well as actually internship opportunities for high school students and then college students with diverse background. You know, it's hard to do a nonprofit, especially if you don't have a big name behind you. But I think it's a grassroots effort. We are collaborating with universities. You know, UW could be one of them, of inviting more local high schoolers of diverse background to, you know, learn about AI.
Nice.
Would you encourage your children to go into AI?
I'll tell you, my 11-year-old was reading my book, and then he said, "Mom, I found my North Star." I'm like, whoa, this is exciting. I said, what is it? He said, video game.
Simulation it is.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. One more time, thank you so much
you.
for
Thank you.
starting.